Welcome to Bunnyfish Crafts. I'm your host Heather, known as Bunnyfish on Ravelry and Plurk. Today is Monday, the 10th of June, 2013. This is episode 31. I only do socks. Grab some sticks and string and come sit with me. This week, I can't think of anything important that happened. Not a thing. Although this morning, we had maintenance come out because when they replaced our heater, our furnace unit forever ago, they replaced it, but the new unit was much smaller than the old unit. The old unit used to be snug up against the wall, and now there's like, I don't know, a foot between the wall and the unit. And the intake area for the unit left a huge hole in the wall, and they never patched it up. So someone came out today to change the filter and put something over the hole. And I'm sorry if you can hear my children. They're not sleeping, but I think we've come to expect that nap time doesn't happen that much anymore. Anyway, we scheduled that to happen between 1 and 4 today, and the guy showed up at 11-ish, 10:45. I was wearing one of those dresses that I only wear around the house. I'm sure that you have similar types of clothes that you only wear around the house and would not be seen in public wearing. For me, it is sundresses that expose way too much of my cleavage that people have just given me. I answered the door, and because if you don't answer the door, they let themselves in. That's what they have keys for. I didn't want him to just walk in while I was in the middle of getting changed, so I answered the door, showed him where the furnace was. He's new. Yeah, it was a new guy. Awesome. Showed him where the furnace was, ran upstairs and got changed into real clothes. It was just really awkward. I don't like people coming into my house anyway. Well, townhouse, whatever. I just don't like random people coming in, even maintenance, and to have them come when they're not scheduled just makes me even more agitated than the thought of random people coming. Anyway, on to new, better things. I have a thank you this week. Julie, who is Crow Julie on Ravelry, sent me a pattern that she just designed. It's called Cables, How I Love Thee. And her name is Julie A. Reeves. So here is the pattern. And I think the socks are gorgeous. As soon as I get some other socks off the needles, these are at the top of my list to knit. I think that I'm deciding that I really, really, really like cables. Lace is cool. Stockinette is not my friend. I'm talking as far as socks are concerned. And knit and purl patterns are pretty good, but I really, really enjoy doing cables. Even mock cables. Anyway, Julie, thank you so much. Those will be on the needles sooner rather than later. Have some knit-alongs to talk about. We'll talk about the temperature, well, knit, crochet, spin, weave alongs. Talk about the temperature one first. This is how far I am into the sock. You can see some definite changes of color. Big chunk where it was 80s for a few days and then 70s, and then one day it hit 80 again, then back to 70s, and then yesterday it was up in the 80s again. So, and the socks are very different because I'm using the same balls of yarn, the same colorways, but pulling from the inside outside of this one and using two separate leftover balls of the pink color. And you might be able to see that I added some texture in there. I don't know if you can. My camera, not so excellent on focusing. I think you'll be able to see it Nah, not right now. When it's more of a sock. But yeah, I've been doing really well on this project. I've done the stripe the day that I recorded the temperature, or I think I've only had to do 2 stripes in one day from falling behind. So that's not bad. I could foreseeably have thigh highs in less than a year for myself. If you're new, you don't know that I made my sister 3 pairs of thigh highs, so I'm capable of making thigh highs. But I'm not very good at making things for myself. I just set them aside for projects for other people. I'm really warm today. So I'll probably be moving my hair a lot to try to be less warm. Let's give you some details on that craft along. The idea is to record some aspect of weather and have certain things correspond with certain yarn colors. I'm doing temperature, so every 10-degree chunk of temperatures, I'm designating a different colorway and then knitting with that colorway per day. It's the original project for this idea was a scarf, but I have a different idea for a scarf that I want to wear, and I don't need multiple scarves. So I'm doing these in thigh highs so I can actually have a pair of thigh highs. This is running through the end of May next year, 2014, and for the other craft along, someone asked me over the weekend what the tag was, and I realized that I hadn't put up a tag for either craft along. I came up with tags. The tag for this one is BPHTEMP, Bunny Fish Temperature. The other craft along that we have going on is the One Skein craft along. It started on June 1st, runs through July 31st. The idea is to make a project using 1 skein of yarn. I don't care what weight it is, whatever weight you want to use. A single skein, 75% to 100% of the skein needs to be used in the project. If you're making socks, it needs to be a pair of socks. Mittens should be a pair of mittens. It should be a complete project using 75% to 100% of a skein. The tag will be BPH, the number 1, skein, SKEINSALG, Sir Ancelot Lady G, because this is co-hosted with Anna from that podcast. I'll be right back. Mara decided she desperately needed to wear a long sleeve t-shirt, and one of the sleeves was inside out. Mara decided she desperately needed to wear a long sleeve t-shirt, and one of the sleeves was inside out. But she already had the shirt on, so she couldn't figure it out. Anyway, I think I've gotten through all of the specs for it. Here is what the prize will be. There are 2 separate prize threads, one in my group and one in Anna's group. And for the thread in my group, this will be the prize. It's Nooch fiber in Midtown Sock, which is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, in the colorway Tomorrow. And it's so pretty, and I am jealous that someone else gets to have it when this is done. I think that colorway is beauteous, and I'm keeping it in the Ziploc bag so that it doesn't get all catified, because I have 4 cats. And 2 dogs. Dogified too. My project for this craft along is the Zipper Lexicon sock by, looking in the wrong spot, Kirsten Hall. I'm using Mountain Colors. I think I have the tag in my book. Now I feel really disorganized because my child is being my child. Okay, so Mountain Colors, Crazy Foot, in the colorway Mountain Tango. And that's what it looks like. It's a little bit messy because I've been carrying it around everywhere and not in a project bag, just kind of carrying it through my house. up by my nest, down by my computer, up by my bed. And this is what it looks like. I have 2 tiers done. And it is now sock shaped, vaguely. I've been doing 1 hexagon a day. That is my goal, so that I don't start hating the pattern, because sometimes doing modular things, not so fun. I like doing modular things, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing some of the blankets that I'm doing, but I'm only doing 1 hexagon a day. I'm using this as part of my Nerd Wars dissertation, so that's part of the reason, because I have 2 pairs of socks for that. And I want them to take the full amount of time and also do the other Nerd Wars projects and not wear myself out. But yeah, that's how it's working. I have the, there are 2 different hexagon patterns. There's a flat hexagon, and then there is a stretchy hexagon. And I have the flat hexagon pattern memorized, but I've only done 1 stretchy hexagon, so I don't have that memorized yet. But I will probably have that memorized shortly after I start doing them more frequently. I'm using double points because I don't have a free size 1 Zerk. I'm using size 1, US size 1, which is 2.25, and size 3, which I don't know what a size, US size 3 needle is. I'll look that up for next week, since I'll still be working on this. Oh, I can't believe Mara likes to open the back door. Sometimes she leaves it open. She likes to open it to let the dogs out. Sometimes she leaves it open, and now we have a fly, and it is driving me crazy. So if you see it and it's distracting, I apologize. Okay, just all over the place. I have 1 finished object this week. Well, it's a pair. I finished the Gandalf socks by Claire Ellen from the Fellowship of the Sock Book. I decided to work the pattern down the toe a little bit, just for fun. Well, by a little bit, I mean all the way down, and did my own, put decreases where I thought they would look nice. So that is what the sock will kind of look like on a foot. I made these for Haley. She sent me the yarn, which is Highland Handmade Sugar Maple Sock in the colorway Fly You Fools. And it's this really lovely gray, 2 shades of gray and a white, variegated. I really like the way the colors played out. I worked those on a US size 1, which is 2.25 millimeter needles. I want to talk to you about this yarn for just a moment. I have an allergy to a lot of fiber. Cashmere, a lot of the wools out there. Merino I'm okay with, but this is 75% superwash wool, not merino specific, and 25% nylon. And my hands are pretty good about not being allergic to things because I have to handle things with my hands. There's that fly. But I was working on this project, and I was wearing a sundress, and I was sitting in a VKN, and the skirt fell above my knees because I sit with my knees up towards my chest. So as I was working on this project, the socks kept like rubbing across my legs, and I got a little bit itchy, a little bit red. So a warning out there, If you have really sensitive skin, just keep that in mind. It was nice yarn. I really like the way that this yarn was dyed up, so I'm going to look and see if Highland Handmaids carries other sock bases, ones that don't have cashmere and have specific wool. Because I love the way it's dyed up, I just couldn't make myself socks out of it. The bottoms of my feet would be fine, but everything else would be really, really itchy. So just a heads up. However, I really liked the yarn. I think it would be fantastic for shawls. I think that the color is amazing. And this is the only Highland Handmaids that I've used, period. So I wouldn't recommend basing your judgment on whether or not to buy off of this little blurb, because I don't have a lot of experience with their stuff, her stuff, Heather's stuff. Okay, works in progress. Showed you the zipper Lexicon socks. Started my other NerdWords dissertation sock, but I'm not nearly as far on this project. My other NerdWords project is going to be the Nightingale socks by Vintage Pearls. And I've never done stranded colorwork before, so of course I'm going to do some knee-highs. Go big or go home. So I have just started. I'm barely into it. I have 3 rounds. The toe is 1x1 striping. This is a crazy project. I want to get the toes done in the next few days so that I can actually use it for my NerdWords dissertation, because you have to do a swatch, and I think toes is a good size to know whether or not I'm going to be able to do it. The pattern calls for US 1.5, but if you have watched before, you know that I don't have 1.5. I decided to go up rather than go down because it's a new technique. I'm not certain on how to hold the yarn. Tension is going to be difficult, and the pattern itself says you might need to go up a needle size to keep the stitches loose enough that you don't have puckers. So I went up to a 2, which is 2.75 millimeters, and the yarn that I'm using Knit Picks Stroll Fingering in black for the background, and I'm using this gorgeous yarn for the pattern. It is a Yarn Well Spun, which is it's local yarn, local to me, and it's the Wind in the Willows colorway. No focusing for me. Oh, maybe a little focusing. Next week there will be toes. I promise there will be toes, and there will be something to look at instead of this. I'm a little bit scared of this project because, yeah, stranded color work, it's a little bit intense. But I have 3 months to finish it. I think 3 months of time for these socks and these Zipper Lexicon socks. Getting both of those done is reasonable. As long as I stick to it, I should be able to do it, right? Well, I have 2 other projects. I'm still spinning the all spun up fiber. Is that what it is? Yes, all spun up fiber, which I didn't bring down because it looks the same. I'm spinning it to make socks, so it's really thin, which means that progress doesn't look like much, especially on a drop spindle. I've been doing between 20 and 30 minutes every day except for the past couple days. No, I think I did it on Saturday too. I just didn't do it yesterday, and I haven't done it yet today. It's pretty though. I'll show it to you again soon. Maybe next week if I remember. I did start another project as well. This is the Kalajoki by Tina Sepala. I'm using Joanne Sensations Bamboo and You pattern, and I'm not sure, there we go, I'm not sure what color it is. Let me pull it out. The color is Purple Black pattern. These are socks for Steve. He chose the yarn. After I finish this pair of socks for Steve, there is no more yarn in the stash specifically for him. Oh, lies, there's one more skein in the stash specifically for him. But he probably doesn't remember, so it won't matter. I can just work on socks for me and Amanda and Mary Lee and Dennis, I guess. I can start those socks for my sister's boy thing. So this is the pattern. It's written for a sport weight yarn. I'm using a fingering weight, and it has one less ridge, one less of, I can't do it. This, whatever. This ridge right here that you're seeing, it has one less of those in the pattern. I made it more since I'm using 72 stitches instead of 54 stitches, I think, for a sport weight sock. It's not very much so far. It will, when it's done, it will curve like the Kalajoki River. That's what the pattern's based off of. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. And last night in a VKN, I put in waste yarn for the heel. I'm going to do an afterthought heel because I really like the stripes in this. Normally, I don't care. I just do a different heel. I don't particularly like afterthought heels. So even in self-striping yarn, I'll just do a different heel. But I really, really, really like these stripes. So, afterthought heel it is. I'm using a US size 1, which is 2.25 millimeters. I don't think that I've ever used a size 1 for Steve's socks before. I'm pretty sure that all of his other socks have been on size 2. That means it's going to take longer. But that's okay. I'm pretty fast at socks now. And as you can see, everything that I've worked on or finished has been socks. And the only other knitting related thing that I have to show you is a sock yarn blanket. It's okay. This coming week I have a couple other projects that I need to start, and one of them is not socks. So here's the sock yarn blanket. So beautiful. Start over here. Let's make sure that, oh, no, there's one over here. So I did 7 squares this week. This one, and then jumping all the way. Well, I'll show you this. This one right here. All the ones with stitch markers are what I did this week. And that one. I have plans for today's. I'm really trying to get back to doing 1 square a day. So I have plans for today's will be right here, and it's going to be this color. And then I'm going to do a big square right in this area using the edge of the square that I'm going to make today. And that means it's 4 days worth of squares. So I have the next 5 days picked out, and this is what the big square is going to be made out of. That's my blanket. It's getting so big, kind of. It's not getting that big, but I feel like it's getting kind of big. I got a new thing this week. Told you last week about the package that I got from my swap partner, Denise. I should have put Haley's socks on the sock blockers for you to see. I did for pictures, but I forgot to do it here. There are 2 flies. There are in fact 2 flies. That's awesome. Thank you, Mara. So I got the other part of the package from her, which is a book that she ordered for me from my Amazon wish list. She got me Vogue Knitting Stitchionary. This is volume 1, Knit and Purl. This is really exciting. This is my first Stitchionary. Stitch dictionary of any sort, really. I have a sock book that, I have 2 sock books that have lots of sock patterns in them. So I mean, those kind of count. I could adapt them to the other things. But this is my first like actual just stitch dictionary type book, not meant to be made into other things. Also, it has green on the cover, which makes it kind of the best. I do really want the cables one and the lace one too. But those are on my list, and maybe Steve will get them for me someday for a birthday or something. They're on my wish list. But yeah, gorgeous. Love it. Love the stitch patterns in there. You may have noticed that there wasn't a ton of knitting done this week. That is because there was a lot of reading done. And some of the reading was not done while working on things because, well, I finished Rose Madder by Stephen King. I liked the way it ended, but again, warning, there's a lot of graphic violence against minorities and women. It's a very sensitive subject for some people, but it was a really good story if you like Stephen King type books, because he wrote it, so it was obviously like that type of book. Finished that, and I went to my bookshelf and pulled American Gods down by Neil Gaiman. I mentioned when I finished Stardust that I had books on my shelf by Neil Gaiman that I hadn't read. I have 3. I was in a VKN, and Jenna of 716 Knit was talking about Neil Gaiman books, and she had just finished American Gods and was wondering if anyone had read it because she wanted to discuss it. And I said, I don't know, that might be one of the ones on my shelf that I haven't read. So she told me I should read it next so that we can discuss it at the retreat. The retreat is the Zombie Knit Apocalypse. I know that I don't talk about it every week like some podcasters do, but I'm going to the Zombie Knit Apocalypse in 10 days. It's going to be my first retreat of any kind since school days. I don't know, going to sidetrack for a moment. I'm really excited to go, but I'm also really, really nervous. It will be the first time that my kids will be far away from me. Like, to drive to the retreat would take me 13 hours. My kids have only ever been maybe 4 hours away from me by car. So that is huge and scary, and I've only had child-free weekends a couple times since I've had Mara. Gabriel he used to spend weekends away from me all the time because we lived like 45 minutes away from grandparents, and he had sitters who loved to take him even if I didn't have to work, who would just take him for the weekend, so that was great. And I got used to it then, but now I'm completely not used to it because they are with me all the time. We live so far away from family. So I'm a little bit nervous about being so far away from them. But I think that there will be so much going on at the retreat. I'm taking a couple classes. I'm participating in a 5K. There's going to be a marketplace. There's a lot to do just in the area. A street fair is going to be going on that weekend right near the hotel that I'm staying in. So I'm hoping that that will keep me from freaking out about being away from my kids. Anyway, going to finish this, hopefully, by the retreat. That's 10 days away, and I'm on page 200 out of 590. So yeah, I should be able to finish that in the next 10 days. I really like it so far. You might be able to gather from the title that it is about American-specific gods. There's a war brewing between old world gods that people brought over in their minds when they came here from other places, and the new gods that the current American culture is making, like, for instance, the god of television. That's a character. I'm really enjoying it. I really enjoy Neil Gaiman's writing style. There he is. Not that looking at him matters, but I enjoy his writing style. I'm enjoying this book a lot, and I read it later than I should at night, so I get less sleep than I should, but sometimes you just need to read. I also am listening to Clash of Kings. I only listened to maybe 3 discs last week out of 30. See, 30. But I'm going to try to listen to a disc a day this week, at least 5 days. A disc so 5 discs this week. I'm going to try to get through. I'm sure there will be a time where it will get to a point in the story where I just need to listen through the whole thing. Just need to keep changing out the discs and listening to it. I'm not to that point yet. I'm only on disc 11. But I'm sure it will get there. I watched the show, excuse me. I watched season 2, this is book 2 of the series of A Song in Fire and Ice. And I know what's going to happen kind of, but it's so different between the book and the show. I imagine that when the actual fighting starts, that I will have to just keep listening and listening and listening. It'll get to that point. I also started reading another book on my tablet because it has Kindle on it. I started reading World War Z, An Oral History of the Zombie War by Max Brooks. And it's really good. But it's done in the style of interviews, a series of interviews. That's what makes up the sections of the book, chapters, sections, whatever you want to call them. I really enjoy the style. I like that it's broken up like that so you get different voices. I don't always love that in books, but I think this book handles that style very well. I'm only about 10% into it, so again, I don't have a lot to tell you about the book. I can tell you that I am not a huge fan of the zombie subgenre in general. I don't really like zombie movies. I don't think that I've ever read a zombie book before, but I kept seeing the book at the library or on a shelf at a store, and I was like, well, maybe. And then Steve told me that he had already put it onto his Kindle. Our Kindles are all connected. And I was going to my knit group, and the only book that I was reading was this one. And it's really hard to knit while reading this type of book because the mass market paperbacks don't open really flat. You can't set them on anything. I guess if you had a book holder, you could prop it, but I don't. So I decided instead I would take my tablet and read off of that. So I did, and it worked well. It worked nicely. children are distracting me again. I'm sorry. I'm going to turn on the light so you can actually see what I'm going to show you in the next segment. It's not the best light, but at least now I'm not fading into the background with my pale face, the only thing showing up. Okay, I have 3 things this week. It is the 3 notions that I freak out when I can't find them. I'm going to start with, this is the little crochet hook that Denise sent me in the package last week. I've always had a crochet hook in my notions bag. Small, something to pick up drop stitches. This one's better because it's shorter, it takes up less space. It's just enough to do exactly what I need it to. And not being able to find the hook when you drop a stitch is extremely frustrating. Terribly frustrating. And plus this hook is just pretty because it's ebony wood. I don't have a wooden crochet hook except for this one. The second thing is, well, scissors in general. Mara really likes scissors, so she will take them and try to cut yarn inappropriately. I have many times stopped her from cutting projects that I've been working on. She can't really handle the scissors well. Like, her hand doesn't, she can't make the scissors cut yet. But someday she'll be able to, and I don't want her to be cutting my projects. But specifically, I love these scissors right here. They're short. They are less than 4 inches, so they should be able to make it onto a plane. I don't know if I'm willing to risk it though, because I do really, really, really love these scissors. I don't know. I don't want them to get taken away. Especially because then I'd have to figure out where to buy some. And maybe you can buy them at local yarn shops or big box stores, but maybe not. And I really like this pair specifically. I've had this pair for several years. And I love it because it folds up really little. It doesn't take up much space. And it folds up so you can't stab yourself. And the third thing is this specific darning needle. Or, you know, tapestry needle, whatever you want to call it. I have some small ones specifically for Kitchener toes of socks, because this is a little bit big for that. But this is my favorite one. After I put together Robert's Brown Dragon in Michigan, I promptly lost this needle. It wasn't like I was about to leave in 2 seconds. It was early-ish in the day. I couldn't find it. I was very stressed out. And I had to go a whole week without it because I didn't find it before I left. So my sister, she sent it to me in the mail, which is exciting because it's my very favoritist one. And these are the 3 things that I really can't live without in some way, shape, or form. I mean, obviously you need the tools and the yarn. But in addition to those things, these are what I can't handle not being without, because I can't make a needle out of thin air. I can make a stitch marker out of a scrap piece of yarn, or out of a paper clip, or a safety pin, or, you know, those rings in bras where the straps connect. I totally have several of those from worn out broken bras that are in my stitch marker case, because you can make stitch markers. I can't make this hook. I can't make scissors. I mean, I could use a knife or a box cutter or just break yarn with my hands, but I work with acrylic sometimes and that hurts, so not so great. But these are my 3 things. What are your things? What do you need in your notions bag for it to feel complete. 3 things that if they're not in there, it's not complete, you're not ready to walk out the door. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me. I enjoyed hanging out with you. I hope you made something fantastic with your 6 and string, and I will see you next week. Bye!